Good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms in the room. We love you very, very much. We think what you do is very, very important. To the mother of my own children, my wife, just want to say Happy Mother's Day. Watching you raise our kids was just such a joy, and you did an amazing job. 3 out of 4 turned out amazing. When Samantha, our firstborn, when Samantha was 5, the most important person in her life was my wife. She was really connected to my wife, and if you asked her at age 5, what do you want to be when you grow up, she would say, I want to be a mommy, because of what she had seen in my wife. I was always excited to hear that, because when she was 3, she wanted to be a fire truck. So I thought that was definitely a step in the right direction. And then we were not only 2 daughters, we were blessed then with twin sons. The twin sons were just an absolute, they were demonic, all right? I'm just going to say that. At age 3 in the nursery, we had nursery workers who would ask, are the Otto twins going to be with us this week? And then they would get on different weeks, and stuff. And that can't be good, by the way, when people are avoiding your kids in church. And Mark was around 3 or 4. He bit the lady nursery worker in the fanny. She still brags about that to this day. And so raising our kids was just a handful. My wife, out of all the moms in my life, she's the one I respected the most. Our kids are not perfect, but they are successful and they are hardworking. They're kind-hearted. They're funny. They're good citizens in their communities, and my wife had a big hand in all of that. I say all that to prepare my heart for Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians 6, the Bible says, honor your father and mother. Honor them, which is the first commandment with a promise that it may go well with you and that you may have a long life on earth. All right? All right, honor your father and mother, and then you'll have a life. So let me translate this for all the kids in the room. Be nice to your mom or she'll kill you. All right? Pretty sure that's how that translates. This commandment, by the way, goes all the way back to the Old Testament. Paul's just reiterating what God said in the Old Testament and bringing it into the New Testament. It was one of the 10 commandments, by the way, to honor your father and mother, to be that kind of person that brings honor on them. If you're sitting next to a child now today, here's a good chance to elbow them a little bit. God said that. To the moms in the room, you are way more important than you give yourself credit for. I think the devil wants you to feel worthless. I think God wants you to feel special. The influence that you have on your home and in your family is absolutely immense. You actually set the mood for your home. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. We've heard that, right? But you're actually a mood setter for your home. It's important what you do. But the most important role that you play in this world, you had the privilege of being the first light to shine in a child's life. Jesus used lots of light metaphors, by the way. When Jesus is talking about light, he's talking about hope. He's talking about joy. When Jesus talks about darkness, he's talking about despair and doom and death. And so whenever you see Jesus using light and darkness in a passage, there's those two extremes there. And it's funny because he talks about this light that he had first and then it came to us. John chapter 12, I have come as a light to shine in this dark world so that all who put their trust in me will no longer remain in darkness. So first of all, Jesus says, by the way, I'm the light. But then he turns around and he hands it off to all of us. Whether you're a parent or not just to the moms in the room, but for all of us who are followers of you are a light in this dark world. Matthew chapter 5, let your light shine. In all this darkness, you make a difference. You do make a difference. I had a woman one of our newcomers, she came up to me not too long ago, and she was like, she's like, it is so challenging where I work. She said, it is such a dark, dark place to work. And I smiled at her and I said, isn't that amazing that in this little dark corner of the world, God made sure to put one of his brightest lights. And she looked at me and she goes, oh, you're good. She said, you're good. 2,000 years ago, it was also dark. Don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself about the current times. In Jesus' day, there was political corruption of Rome. There was the priestly corruption of the temple. There was the leadership corruption of the Pharisees. Jesus, in all of that darkness, said, I've come to be a light in all of that. And that's what we were promised was coming. A Messiah who would bring light. That's what the prophets told us about. Isaiah chapter 9, we often talk about this at Christmas time, but the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, light has dawned. Light has always been a symbol of hope. Up and down the coastlines of America, both sides, there's just a collection of lighthouses all the way along. They seem outdated today since every ship has a GPS. They rely on GPS now when there's a dangerous shoreline, but there was a day they didn't have GPS, and those lighthouses became very welcome, especially for a lost ship in the dark. And I've been a lost ship. And you've been a lost ship. And in our lostnesses, if that's a word, in our darknesses, Jesus came and shined a light in it. And now we become a light to others. But we live in a world that is dark, and it feels like it's getting darker. What recent news has frustrated you most lately? Shootings, stabbings, manslaughter, worldwide violence, protests, dirty politics, scandals of every kind. The Bible warned us about this. 2 Timothy chapter 3, evil men and impostors will proceed from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. I didn't write this, but here it is. Some politicians fulfill that passage. They're liars, and so they're deceiving people, and all the while they're deceiving themselves. Jesus said that there'd be some people that they would never come to the light. It's almost like he's holding a trial in John chapter 3. Jesus says, this is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but people love darkness instead of the light because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. They loved the darkness more. Are you kidding me? They loved it? Those are chilling words to read. But Jesus countered all that darkness with this. John chapter 8, he who follows me, you're not going to walk in darkness anymore, but you're going to have the light of life. The light of life has come into your life. Jesus brings light. Satan wants to bring darkness. You understand that. I've told the story before, but there's so many new people here, I'm going to do it again. So I came home. We had teenagers at the time. And when I pulled up in front of the house, I was immediately frustrated because it looked like an airport runway. Every light in the house was on. And I came from the front door. I was upset, and I'm yelling, you kids, you leave on every light. Are you kidding me? You left lights on that rooms you're not even in, And if you had to pay the light bill, you thought you heard beer. You didn't hear beer. Oh, that just ruined that whole story. If you had to pay the light bill, you wouldn't leave all these lights on. And I came around the corner into the family room, and there was my wife sitting with one of our newest couples to the church. And before I could say anything, Bonnie said, "Behold, the Prince of Darkness." Some of us had the joy of being taught years ago a little song. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Hide it? Hide it? No. No, I'm not going to hide it. Some of you were invited here today by someone who loves you and cares about you deeply, but this whole light thing, you're not on board just yet. This whole Jesus thing, you're not quite sure what to do with just yet. That's great. You honored a loved one today. You honored the invitation by coming, and I'm glad you came, but you're sitting here right now going, oh, I know what this preacher's doing. You better believe it, because we care. You know what that family member did that invited you? You want to know what that friend did that brought you to church today? Because they care. Here's what we believe, just so we're clear about it. We believe everyone dies. We believe everyone will live forever somewhere. We believe you get to make a choice as to where you will spend eternity. And we believe the highest hope for us is to connect ourselves to the one who died and was buried and came back from the dead, Jesus Christ. That's what we believe. And for us not to shine that light in your life would be like for us having the cure for cancer and keeping it to ourselves. We can't do that. And so the invitation you received today is one of the most loving, kind things you could possibly have received. We're shining a light because Jesus put this light inside of us. You want to know, by the way, church, when you shine the brightest? I'm going to tell you when you shine the brightest. When you're beat down. When the circumstances of life are bad. And in those moments, you still choose to worship. You still choose to be a follower of Jesus. You don't blame him for the bad things in your life. It's when you make Jesus the most attractive. When you're beat down by a bad doctor's report, when you're beat down by a loved one's death, when you're beat down at work or at school or at home or in your marriage and you still choose to shine. Rejoicing Christians always shine the brightest when they're under bad circumstances, when you're fighting your own darknesses. So Jesus in this moment just said simply, let your light shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. You're not going to create this light, by the way. No one in the room has to do anything to get the light. When you became a follower of Jesus, the light was in you. But you have to choose to let it shine. You just let it shine. This isn't a sermon on, here's 10 ways to let your light shine. That's not what this is. It's just an encouragement for you to let it shine. And back to the moms in the room for just a moment. To let the light of Jesus shine in a child's life is the highest calling you could possibly have been given. To the grandparents in the room, to the aunts and the uncles, to anyone who has a child looking up to them. To be able to shine that light in their life is the highest calling and pays off the largest dividends in the end. And so even if you have family members who don't always appreciate it, and even if you have people who reject it, you just keep shining. Kids aren't perfect. Moms aren't perfect either. But in the end, so many of them find their way back to Jesus. It might come after you're gone. Does that matter? You'd love to have them come back to Jesus right now, but just as long as they find their way back before it's too late, isn't that all you really want? And so for all the moms in the room today, the light that Jesus put in you, hide it under? No. I'm going to let it shine.